Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, dear participants. I am pleased to open the first meeting within the joint project of UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies and Education and Shanghai Open University, promoting ICT capacity building and open education in the era of artificial intelligence and digital technologies. So, and this is the first meeting. Well, I can see that more than 40 people registered from 15 countries. Now I can see that online are already 28 participants, and I hope the others will join us soon. So this meeting will be recorded because the project covers the whole well, this is a global project, and I'm sorry, I have some problems with my computer. So, well, it covers countries from China to Canada, and not all participants are able to be to attend the meeting because they are in very different time zones. So this meeting is recorded. Second, well, it will be interpreted, and well, if you need, you can see at the bottom of your screen there is a button that will allow you to switch from one language to another if necessary. So I'm pleased to give the floor for opening remarks from our institute, UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies in Education, to our director, Mr. Tao Zhang. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, my colleague, Ms. Svetlana Knetsova, dear Professor Wang Hong, Professor Paul Baksich, distinguished experts and colleagues, greetings from Moscow. 大家好. On behalf of UNESCO Institute, IITE, I'd like to thank you all and welcome you all to this expert meeting organized jointly by UNESCO IITE and our partner, Shanghai Open University. I think this is a very challenging and difficult time for colleagues in Shanghai because of the pandemic lockdown. I'm very glad to see Professor Wang and your team online. As a matter of fact, we are also facing unprecedented challenges in Moscow. So today we are very pleased and very grateful to everyone presenting at today's meeting. Dear colleagues, we have been talking about openness in education for decades. However, open education, including OER, MOOCs, open data, open license, and so on, is a concept with transformative new ideas and innovative new experience today, thanks to the rapid development of information technology and pioneering experience, especially the innovative experience of open universities. Apparently, the COVID pandemic has further accelerated this transformative process because of the urgent needs. We all believe that Open University is the pioneer and one of the pillars of open education movement. Open University has its unique role and great potential in contributing to SDG for the quality education for all and the digital transformation of education. That's why UNESCO IITE, working with our partner Shanghai Open University with Professor Wang's team, has designed and launched a UNESCO project with Open University and open education as the key focus. Open education is a flagship of IITE's program with a professional team led by Ms. Svetlana. Shanghai Open is a perfect partner of us because of its proud history, its excellent team, its location, and also Shanghai Open is coordinating the UNESCO Unit 10 network for open universities. And the aim of this project is to engage open universities from different regions of the world to share innovative experience, to develop a benchmarking framework, and to establish a broad collaboration network for our shared vision and goals. Today, we are particularly happy to have Professor Paul Bakzich, and a very experienced and leading expert in this area, to have representatives and experts from universities in Asia, Africa, Middle East, and Europe. We are very thankful to you for your participation. I hope this meeting is not only a consultative meeting, but also the new beginning of more closely collaboration network for years to come. Before finishing my short remark, I would like to share some information with you about the World Higher Education Conference to be held in Barcelona in May this year. There will be a special session on the role of open universities at this important global conference. This session is co-organized by IITE and the Commonwealth of Learning Co. on the 19th of May in hybrid form. Professor Wang is also one of the speakers there. I think more information will be shared with you by Ms. Svetlana, and you are all welcome to join us again online for this event at the UNESCO World Higher Education Conference 2022. Finally, I wish a very productive and pleasant discussion today. Thank you all, and over to you, Svetlana.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. And now I'm pleased to invite Mr. Hong Wang, Vice President of Shanghai Open University, to deliver opening remark on behalf of the Shanghai Open University.
Okay, thank you. Dear Mr. Zhang, dear every expert, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon. On behalf of the Shanghai Open University, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to UNESCO IITE for our active cooperation and your great support on the joint project. I would also like to express my appreciation to all the experts and participants. Thank you for making suggestions on the development of open and distance learning. Shanghai Open University is one of the earlier constructing open and distance learning institutions. It plays an important role in promoting lifelong learning and developing the learning city in Shanghai. In 2009, SOU was awarded UNESCO King Hamad Prize for the use of ICT in education. More than 20 years ago, SOU became the coordinating institution of UNESCO Unit 10 network in distance and open learning. Now this Unit 10 network has 23 open and distance learning institutions in 8 countries. Today, I'm glad to see some old friends here. The consultative expert meeting today is for the joint project promoting ICT capacity building and open education in the era of artificial intelligence and digital technologies, launched by UNESCO IITE and SOU in 2021. The participants of this meeting may come from different institutions, different regions. Your institutions and universities may also have different background when established, but We share a common idea and future. We are all called open and distance learning institutions. We all face similar challenges in globalization, in employee structure, in technological innovations, as well as development and transformation of our institutions and universities. How we will respond to the increasing needs of learners, how to ensure inclusive, equitable, and inflexible and flexible quality education, and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all, as mentioned in SDG 4. That's why we launched the Project Activity 1, elaborating benchmarked guidelines for high quality development of open universities worldwide in our joint project with UNESCO IITE. By conducting international survey on institutions and universities in different countries, we hope to express a global benchmark guide to promote the transformation and the development of open and distance learning institutions and universities in the context of lifelong learning. We hope this project will bring together wisdom of open and distance learning communities. SOU is also willing to share experience and practice with all stakeholders. We hope to define and prepare a roadmap for sustainable development of open and distance learning, paved the way for inclusive learning for all. That's all my speech. Thanks for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Hong Wang. And well, the next presentation will be delivered by Mrs. Ekaterina Pushkareva, Program Specialist at the Unit of Digital Pedagogy and Learning Materials. She will provide a brief overview of the project and some pre-screening results. You're welcome, Ekaterina. Ekaterina, I think you might wish to share your presentation.
My mic was off. I'm sorry. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Yes. Let me briefly tell you about the project. Do you see my screen?
Not yet. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, it's up here.
Great.
Yes.
So as it has already been mentioned, the project was launched in 2021 and it will be finished in 2023. And it is jointly implemented by the UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies and Education and Shanghai Open University. So the project is aimed to foster the use of ICT-based innovative approaches with a particular focus on open education in order to contribute the achievement of Sustainable Development Goal 4. In particular, to expand access to relevant lifelong learning opportunities and enhance the quality of learning. The project is has three expected outcomes. this is promotion of access to higher education and improvement of the quality of open education, support to digital transformation of education through ICT and AI enhanced approaches, and finally, enhancement of digital citizenship education. During this meeting, we will refer mostly to outcome 1, promotion of access to higher education through open universities. And within this outcome 1, the following activities are implied: exploring the models of education delivery at open universities through the survey based on the developed framework, as well as information provided by open universities, and summarizing the case studies in an analytical report. Then conducting expert meetings and consultations to provide recommendations for the development of benchmarking methodology and guidelines for open education. And this meeting is one of such expert meetings. And finally, organizing an international conference to present and discuss the project results. Here is the structure of the case study framework, which was earlier distributed among interested open universities, and the questionnaire was based on this structure. 15 open universities from 14 UNESCO member states became case study contributors, and on this slide you may see a list of those who contributed to the project, and we express our appreciation to those who contributed to this project, and we encourage those open universities who has not contributed yet but willing to do so, please contact me at a later stage via email. Before we move to the development of the benchmarking guidelines, we should keep in mind that open universities represent an extremely broad range of institutions which serve which serve to meet different objectives, and this is related to their historical, social, economic, and political contexts. In general, the vast majority of open universities is based in Asia and the Pacific, but there are also open universities in Europe and North America, Africa, Arab states, Latin America, and the Caribbean. As I have already mentioned, 15 open universities contributed to the project and filled in the questionnaire, and among of them, six are located in Asia and the Pacific, 4 represent Africa, 3 Europe and North America, and 2 are from the Arab states. Now I would like to share some pre-screening findings, but very briefly because of the time limit. So among the surveyed open universities, the oldest are Shanghai Open University and Athabasca University, while the Nepal Open University is the youngest one. Alama Iqbal Open University is the largest university with the average student enrollment over 1.2 million per year and a broad network of regional offices and centers within the country. Most surveyed open universities are public, but there are also private ones, including the Arab Open University, the International Open University, Lawe Open University College, and Zambian Open University. The Arab Open University operates as a network regulated by the Ministry of Higher Education of the respected country where its branch is located. And as many of you know, the headquarters of the Arab Open University is located in Kuwait. However, there are branches in Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Oman, Palestine, and Sudan. In most surveyed open universities, admission requirements are similar to those in the conventional higher education system, though they may vary. For example, the open admission policy of Athabasca University accepts all learners willing to apply for undergraduate programs and courses as long as they are at least 16 years old and meet the English language proficiency requirements. Open universities offer a wide range of programs from certificate level to undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral levels in a range of disciplines. For example, Sukhothai Thematirat Open University offers continuous education to the general public, which is one of the fundamental aspects of the university's policy, and in the form of non-degree programs in various study areas. Shanghai Open University actively promotes lifelong learning opportunities for all through its open courses, and the number of open courses currently exceeds 550. The Open University of Cyprus offers the life learning program for those interested to develop expertise or receive training in a specific field without the enrollment in a full program of study. Most open universities indicated blended learning as their primary mode of teaching and learning, which implies online or distance learning through the internet, radio, and television, and face-to-face format. However, there are also open universities that offer online or distance learning exclusively or primarily. And these are Athabasca University, Hellenic Open University, the International Open University of Cyprus, and University Târgu. Athabasca University applies cloud-based technologies and serves to provide learners with a seamless learning experience, but they are in the process of replacing Moodle by a cloud-based learning management system called D2L Brightspace. Zimbabwe Open University developed its own customized LMS, the so-called MyVista, system for both synchronous and asynchronous learning. The platform is also used for assessments and serves as a learning analytics tool. Sukhothai Thematirat Open University reported about its STOU modular, which is a new upskilling and reskilling model that offers micro courses with transferable credits, upon completion of which students receive a certificate of competency. And here there are just a few examples of international collaboration of open universities. For example, the Arab Open University operates in partnership with the Open University of UK. Labe Open University College offers programs in collaboration with the Open University of Tanzania. Hellenic Open University has had an interesting project which was addressed to refugees' educational and integration needs. That's all from my side. Thank you for your attention. Thank you once again for the contributions you made, and if your university is willing to contribute to the project, please contact me through the mentioned email. Thank you.
Thank you, Ekaterina, and I would also like to join her words of appreciation to those universities who have already contributed to the project and invite new ones to provide some information about them and join our activities in the field of developing recommendation for the benchmarking methodology. Well, now it's my pleasure to invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Paul Bashich, who is a recognized expert in benchmarking of educational institutions, and he is also recognized expert in open education, in online learning, and in distance learning. Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Svetlana, and good morning from the city of Sheffield, or good afternoon or good evening. And I think some people are probably up very late, so maybe even good night to some. So I'll just share my screen now, and then we can get started. Share. Can everybody see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
One's always nervous with these things. I put a as I described here, I put a reassuring message at the bottom because it's only 12 slides. Sometimes if one doesn't know how many slides, audience can get depressed. So I will try and move quite quickly. There will be sessions for questions and more discussion later. So this is quite a brief presentation. I have spent many years involved in benchmarking. I was the developer of the pick and mix system. And in blue, I've put a few places which have used the various systems. It was used some years ago at TrueOL, as it's called, Thomson Rivers University, the Open Learning Division, which is this sort of migration upstate in British Columbia of the what was effectively the British Columbian Open University in the past. I also, in the way the world works, worked as the UK lead for the e-maturity model, which comes from New Zealand. And in that process, we benchmarked 2 open universities effectively, UKOU, of course, and London External, which, you know, it's hard to describe what it is, and they probably wouldn't even agree themselves, but it's basically London International, many distance learning programs across the world. Many institutions in the world started as colleges of London International way back. I also reviewed the A-code system, which has been used, and we'll talk about that later. I worked on a big ENQA project, looking essentially in 2015 at trying to kind of reconstruct quality schemes to fit better with benchmarking. I'm not sure ENQA would describe the project that way, but that's my view of it. Recently, and benchmarking has had a new lease of life, I worked on benchmarking schemes for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their national center. And currently I'm writing some reports on quality in online learning. And more importantly, perhaps for some institutions, trying to incentivize quality in online learning, or maybe, as some institutions know, trying to stop the government de-incentivizing quality in online learning. And the case studies are quite interesting in terms of the language people use to describe some of the issues. Here are a few logos to look at. I did actually work for the Arab Open University many years ago when the revalidation by the UKOE was going through. So I have many memories of Kuwait. I didn't get to Lebanon, I'm afraid, just to Kuwait. They wouldn't let me travel very much. And I've just finished a long stint at the University of the West Indies Open Campus, who I'm sure would love to be involved, and has many of the multi-country issues that other institutions face, because the Caribbean is a small region, but contains many countries, not all of whom agree with each other. Now, on to slightly depressing news in a way. There are so many benchmarking schemes. In fact, if anyone says there are 30 schemes, they're probably mistaken, because someone will come along and tell them about 3 more schemes. But if you put some filters on this of which schemes have been used a lot, then you come down to a very much shorter list. And many schemes often start with a group of developers, and this is possibly a thought for us in the group here. Sometimes they start with a group and they really don't get beyond the group. And I don't want to criticize my friends, but it's rather typical of a number of EU projects that they develop a nice scheme and then really nothing much happens after that. And the other filter that's very important is people often use benchmarking in quite limited ways. And my feeling is if you're going to get the value, you should use it for the whole institution across all their functions in online learning. And then you should probably do it more than once to get some sense of progress. But I'll stop preaching for a minute. Now, a big topic for all of us in ODL is the link between benchmarking and quality, and in particular, looking at how they're different, but how they are probably trying to achieve the same ends, but from different perspectives. Benchmarking can be very much more global. Quality tends to be national just because of the legal regulation. Benchmark is more related to metrics and grades in some ways. Quality is more about approval and accrediting and approving processes. You tend not to be scored. You may get a commendation, but you don't get a numeric score. A lot of benchmarking systems give, assign numeric scores, a little bit like the US GPA. That may be a bad example, but you know what I mean. 1 to 5 is a typical kind of score. They're both focused on enhancement. And on that point, I'll move on because each of these topics I could talk for hours about. Now, the big question for ODL institutions, even if we could agree who we were and who wasn't one of our club, is are they different? Well, of course they are. Of course we are. When I worked at the Open University UK for 25 years, we felt very different. On the other hand, the legal structure, in a sense, makes you the same. You are a university. You are subject to national legislation. You collaborate with campus institutions and so on and so forth. And so the interesting thing is that existing schemes, which came out of essentially a campus-based paradigm, have been used, I would say, quite successfully. And these are just examples, and we can maybe talk more about them in the questions. But the main operational schemes have all been used for some, at least ODL or at least dual mode institutions. And most recently in the European context, e-excellence has been used quite widely for benchmarking institutions, or to be bright, benchmarking programs within institutions at Anadolu. And you can look at the names. Some of you are here. If you're not on the list, I'm sorry, but I ran out of space. And it's always interesting that Cyprus is so active in online learning. And maybe our delegate from there will explain why, because I don't think external people understand how successful Cyprus has been in these matters. Looking at more recent activity, obviously there is the project here. There's an interesting other project involving Hamdan bin Mohammed Smart University and a number of the usual names called the Association of Asian Open Universities, UNISA, etc. That's something which some of you here probably know more about than me. I just know it exists, really. Quite a lot of work in the EU recently on a project called Embed, but that's really focused on blended learning. COL, of course, is active, and for those in Asia, the University of Malaysia Sabah is a very interesting and public case study on their scheme. And again, in Malaysia, Wawasan Open University is a very interesting public case study, a very interesting place with a very pleasant vice chancellor. Under the commercial firm Holland IQ, who are doing some benchmarking. So this is just a tiny snapshot of lots of things going on. But the question is, what does it all mean? So bringing it down to practicalities. Now, I'm going to use an example from my own system just because I love it and I could talk about it for hours, but the principles are general. So if we look at when you're trying to analyze how well an institution is training its staff, in Pick and Mix, we have a 6-level scheme, but 6 is the excellence level. And to be honest, we don't expect everyone to get there or even want to get there. So it's really a 5-level scheme with the kind of, extra turbo grade. And this scheme was developed basically by reflection on the way training goes on, so that every word in the narrative is important. But it does mean that you can look at what progress from really nothing much happening to so much happening it becomes almost, invisible. So what does this mean in terms of issues that ODL institutions and open universities might want to consider? Well, might they want to consider some criteria, one or more on OER? Now, OER is a very tricky area because we all want to go in that direction, but some of us want to go faster and others want to go slower. And, how does OER differ from open source, and how does it differ from open access in research journals? Analytics, interesting area, the whole concept of inclusion. Many of us are set up to serve disadvantaged communities. How should we measure that and explain that to quality agencies? Many of us have pivoted more to synchronous than we thought we would a few years ago because of the pandemic, and the whole area of assessment. The other big issue, of course, which tends to get neglected, and of course the case studies show that very well. I've been reading some of them. I'm sorry I focused on the institutions I knew already, just to see how familiar things were and how things had changed. They need mapping to the national quality schemes, despite the associations like Xingqiu and Anqua in the European area. There is a lot of difference there's massive differences between national quality schemes, still much more, I think, than analysts realize, as I've been learning recently. The various multinational schemes like the AOU and the African scheme really need much more attention, not just by people in those continents, but elsewhere, because they have tried to do something multinationally, which would still correlate to national schemes. And so the whole issue is coordination. And a very big issue, a fundamental issue, even though it sounds very picky, is how many levels should you have in your scheme? Should it be 3, 4, 5? We can agree it's not 2, because that's like pass or fail. That's too crude. You're either doing nothing or you're doing everything. 3, experience shows, is not enough levels of discrimination. And so most schemes end up with 4 or 5 or 6. And there are always clever ways of mapping 6 into 5 and 5 into 4. And the other big issue, which I'm afraid is still really not very well developed, is it's very hard to write criteria for these schemes, especially if you try and keep away from the aspirational issues. And here are some well-known tricky criteria to get right. It's really hard to write a measurable, rational, evidenced criterion for some of these areas, such as learning design, costs. Innovation is a fascinating one, because many institutions know that actually you have to foster innovation, but you also have to restrict innovation. This sounds really terrible. If you don't believe me, reflect on your role as managers. Many of you are senior managers. Innovation has to be fostered, but not get out of control. Otherwise, every department ends up with their own VLE. You spend a fortune, and the whole kind of coherence of the institution begins to suffer. Interesting issues about agility in terms of rapid content development. We'd all like to do it. Many of us try, and some of us it works, some of it doesn't work. Relationship management to the external stakeholders, government, other governments, industry. And key phrase I must stress is to avoid aspirational criteria where there is no evidence of value. What I often say to institutions who say we must be in level 6 and everything, I'd say you can't afford it. You shouldn't afford it, you shouldn't do it, and you would look very strange if you did do it, because the online learning would be wonderful, but the rest of the institution would probably have collapsed. So, there is a kind of balance in these matters. And I think on that thought about networking and balance, I'll finish my admittedly very brief presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Well, I would propose to have questions and answers after the next presentation, which will be actually a logical continuation of your presentation. So another specialist from our institute, Mr. Denis Kapelushnik, will provide some concrete examples of benchmarking tools developed by different international organizations for the field of education and allied fields. Denis, the floor is yours.
Good day, colleagues. Thank you for joining us today. On behalf of UNESCO AT, I also would like to thank you for your contribution to the project. With this presentation, I hope you can see it at the moment. I would like to start actually the next part of our consultative meeting, which is the discussion that brings together open universities and benchmarking experts from different regions and countries. I'm also engaged in this joint UNESCO IAT SOU project that was described by my colleague Ekaterina. And so this presentation, as I mentioned, yes, this is just an introduction to the following discussion. So, well, as a starter, I would like to present this quote from the monograph, the report by UNESCO released in 1998. It's called Benchmarking in Higher Education, a study conducted by the Commonwealth Higher Education Management Service. And it refers to the Commonwealth University Management Benchmarking Club. And as you see, they started forming their benchmarks through the process, through establishing it, through consultations, through step-by-step and graduate improvement. And that is probably what we would like to follow, the same process as we gathered some case studies. We reviewed several existing benchmarking tools, but still we think that establishing these benchmarks through the process of consultations with open universities, it might help us develop more useful and more up-to-date solutions. So that's what we would like. Actually, there is a content of my presentation. It's not very large. I would like to be brief. This is basically, these are the points that we were taking into account while organizing this consultative meeting. And these are sort of who, what, where, when of benchmarking. But of course, the list is not extensive. Slides 8 to 10, these are some examples of benchmarking tools used in education. These are not necessarily open education. For open education, some of them are very extensive and sophisticated, covering different levels of education. And in slide 10, actually, these are some concepts and questions that we would like to discuss with you today. We shared them with the agenda that you received while with the invitation to this meeting, and we hope that we can discuss them today and probably modify, reduce, or increase it with the help of the industry knowledge. During our preliminary desk research exercise, we established several common reasons or goals for benchmarking, and you can see them on the slide. This list is, of course, not extensive. However, it can reflect general direction towards data-driven decision-making in education. So there are a number of reasons that basically benchmarking is used for. It can help engage various stakeholders, to some extent, even students at some point. Basically, although benchmarking is based on comparative assessment, it is a step away from a ranking system, and that is probably one of our intentions, of our goals when we approach to this project. We would like to avoid the ranking system and move toward self-assessment, peer review assessment, and so on. So indeed, quality assurance and performance assessment through peer learning, peer reviewing is the main advantage of benchmarking. And we know that some of the open universities, at least registered for today's meeting, they participated in some of the benchmarking activities, and we hope that they could share their experience today and maybe some advice or some lessons learned and so on. And they actually mentioned that they perform these activities to understand the internal processes, to discover new ideas and strategies, set targets, and respond to national performance indicators for higher education. And of course, benchmarking can help set new standards in the context of higher education reforms. So these are some goals and advantages of what we expect to receive. Some of the key features in terms of implementation process, we see that benchmarking is highly customizable, and it is probably what we find the main advantage, as there are about 70 open universities worldwide. It depends on how you count and what universities you consider to be referred when you call them open universities. They represent extremely broad range of institutions which serve to meet diverse objectives depending on their historical, social, economic, and political context. And that's what we see. I would like to approach benchmarking in terms of our project. At this point, we think that collaborative mode of benchmarking is more appropriate to our project, but of course, non-collaborative, for example, employing a consulting company to conduct benchmarking has its advantages as well. But at least for now, we think collaborative approach mode would be more appropriate to us. And another feature that we see, and it is observable, that the ubiquity of information systems actually facilitates the benchmarking process. Learning management systems, content management systems, for example, even education management information systems, they are becoming important data sources supporting benchmarking exercises. However, data collection activities should have clear objectives. And that is one of the issues probably to consider, and that we would like to avoid, is to generate as much data as possible is what we would like to avoid. So modern information management systems, they can provide interesting quantitative evidence, and but highlighting it and more importantly interpreting it is far more important. And that's what we would like to state as a goal of this project. In general, data is a sensitive point, and it requires a certain degree of transparency, and to ensure it, it is important to maintain confidentiality. So peer assessment may be arranged through different memorandums of understanding, some other types of partnership agreements, some even non-disclosure agreements, and other types of arrangements. I've seen that, for example, Arab Open University published their policy for benchmarking even, and maybe the representatives of Arab Open University might share it today. We hope they could. And at this point, so we have reached the point where we would like to describe 3 frameworks. Some of them are not even benchmarks, but frameworks to assess quality. And the beginning, I would like to start with the ICT competency framework for teachers. It was developed by UNESCO, and in 2019, UNESCO published its already 3rd version. of this framework that is focused on individual educators, but of course some of the dimensions which you can see on the right, they might be applicable to our project, and we would like to consider them. Also, some advantages of it that it is available in several languages, and potentially it might be a case for our benchmark, as we would like to cover and to assist as many open universities as possible, and this might be a direction that we might take further downstream. So indeed, you can see on the right different indicators. You see the direction toward from knowledge acquisition towards knowledge creation, and teachers and these innovators, learning organizations, and self-management, and so on. And that's probably like a three-point scale that is the core of this framework. The next system is not a single tool, but a set of frameworks, a set of benchmarks developed by the World Bank. It's called the System Approach for Better Education Results, or SABER. And as you see, it covers several levels of education, from early childhood development to tertiary education. It also covers different agents like teachers and students, and it even evaluates specific systems like IMIS, Information Management Information System. So it makes learning data from different assessments comparable across countries, which is probably desirable to our system. And this is a full-level, 4-point scale for evaluating system. On the right, you can see the example of it. There are 4 levels, like latent to advanced, and like a description of these labels. And that's what probably Professor Basic tried to describe, that it's quite difficult to describe criteria. This is an example of it. And this is what we'd like to focus on while developing the benchmark for the open universities. And the next one is actually the one that Professor Basic contributed to. It's an example from Australia. These are a set of benchmarks by the Australian Council of Open Distance and E-Learning. It's been developed, it's been used already for almost a decade. And it represents a set of 8 different benchmarks that can be used individually or as a set of benchmarks. And it covers topic areas from institution-wide policy and governance for technology-enhanced learning to student support for the use of technology-enhanced learning. And on the right, you can see the example of the indicator to evaluate provision of ICT infrastructure for technology-enhanced learning, and overall ratings here. So you can see there is a distribution, there is a differentiation between implementation and maintenance. And the overall rating is basically the average of 2 scores with these 2 dimensions, and it is been designed to use for self-assessment, but indeed it's actually the basis for the collaborative benchmarking. So that's also what would like to we see it as a foundation for our project today. So with the next slide, I finally have arrived to the questions that we would like to discuss. I will return to this slide later whenever it is necessary. It has been shared with you in the agenda. And at this point, I would like to thank everyone for your attention, and probably give floor back to Svetlana. So to maybe give a start to the next discussion.
Thank you, Denise. Well, actually, there is no question and answers session on our agenda, but I would like to announce this session. And well, before I pass the mic to Mr. Paul Basic and Mr. Denis Kapelushnik, who will moderate the second part of this meeting. And well, I do hope that this discussion, these deliberations will be productive. So now I announce the questions and answers session, and well, please feel free to raise your hand if there is technical possibility for this in Zoom. And well, so let's have a round of exchange of opinions, questions, etc. So the floor is open.
We also have a chat, so participants can use the chat to post their questions or maybe opinions on this.
I would like to hear from some of the institutions their own experiences of benchmarking. I don't want to kind of nominate anybody, but my files on these matters are extensive. There are people in the room who have been through e-excellence. There are probably people in the room who've been through ACOD. And I think user experience is absolutely crucial, especially, you know, today we brought together a very useful set of institutions who have lots of experience, but they seem to be experienced but somewhat shy institutions. So it'd be nice to hear some testimonials from them, because benchmarking can be done well and it can be done badly, and you can learn a lot or learn a little. So much depends on the approach, as Dennis said. So some kind of deeper case studies would be very interesting, or questions which arose from this case studies would be really interesting to hear from the institutions.
We see Mr. Baber Ali, so he raised his hand and we would like to give floor to him.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. And it's indeed a pleasure to be here. My name is Baber Ali. I'm the General Manager for Virtual University Television Network. Virtual University is an ICT-based university here in Pakistan. And we have been operating since 2002. And the university is completely based on modern information communication technologies, primarily utilizing broadcast television and internet. And we have about 300,000 students so far with us, and about 70,000 graduates till date. And the university has presence in more than 180 cities of the country, with over 200 campuses also. So we are actually looking forward to contributing in any way that we can to this forum, to this project. And just a brief about Virtual University, that we have developed our own indigenous learning management system that actually has evolved over the passage of time, because we believe that there's certain customization required with respect to the demographics, the unique demographics that and the problems that pose in the respective areas and countries. And plus, in addition to that, the Virtual University has also developed a very unique examination system that caters to about 40 to 50,000 people, students at a time, nationwide. And it's again a very robust and efficient system that has been used, and the Virtual University is now providing this technology and hand-holding many other universities, especially the post-COVID scenario. And Virtual University, ladies and gentlemen, was the only university in Pakistan that was undisrupted during the COVID times, both from the side of the management and from the side of students. So this is another hallmark achievement as far as Virtual University is concerned. But then again, we are now aspiring to provide and inculcate more quality in every aspect of ODM, be it curriculum design, be it the presentation, be it the contents development, be it the learning management system. And we'll be looking forward for an active contribution in this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I am Professor N.N. Sharma of K.K. Hendrik State Open University, Guwahati, Assam, India. So, unfortunately, I missed the first part of the discussion, and accordingly, I sent an email also because I had a preoccupation. I had just now conducted a research seminar, and that was pre-scheduled. So I sent the email that I will just join the discussion only. And without being aware about the earlier kind of discussion, I've just taken the trade on the basis of the topic of this discussion about the improving the performance of open universities. Since I am representing a state open university of India, in India we are having 14 state open universities, and we are having the national open university, that is Xingqiu, Indira Gandhi National Open University, which is a mega university. Then we are having the state open universities, means the provinces, different provinces. We are having 14 state open universities. No, all the states of India are having the open universities, and our university is in the northeastern region. And in the northeastern region, there are 8 states, and out of those 8 states, only in our state we are having in this open university. And we are having, by the government of India, the state jurisdiction. Within the state of Assam only we can operate. Though there have been some regulations of late that we can cross the boundaries of the state also in case of online learning. But as far as ODL is concerned, we'll have to confine within the state. Now, with the main topic, improving the performance of open universities. So I'll just like to share some perspective because it has got something to do with benchmarking also, so that we can learn from each other. You see, geographically, we feel ourselves a bit isolated, in the sense that though we are having 14 state open universities, each one of us is unique. Some out of these 14, you say Xingqiu is a mega university. Other universities, one is so big, lakhs of learners, the other may be having only thousands of learners. One may be having huge infrastructure, the others maybe you have to depend solely on the state resources only, the government patronage. So we do not have the kind of commonalities. Now, evolving the mechanism to improve our own performance, we'll have to think about ourselves only. We'll have to find out, evolve our own mechanism. Now in India, as in elsewhere, we are also having the assessment and accreditation framework. And this assessment and accreditation, Commonwealth of Learning has got this. We have availed that one, and we could meet the expectations of Commonwealth of Learning, but that took long years back, about 10 years back. And of late, we got ourselves assessed and accredited by National Assessment and Accreditation Council, which has been made mandatory. And they have spelled out 7 criteria, which can give specific insight to the open university system to improve their performance and to become learner friendly. So those 7 criteria, suppose first one is about the program curricula, second one is about teaching and learning, third one is about say research and innovation, fourth one is about learner support services, like that. Fifth one is about the benchmarking practices, best practices, like that. They have spelled out a number of criteria, and with all those criteria, they have spelled out a number of quantitative and qualitative matrices, and which can give us specific insights for continuous performance improvement. In our ecosystem, we find ourselves constrained in the sense that we do not have a benchmark institution to function. We'll have to evolve our own benchmarks, number one. Number two, the diversity profile of the learners. Number three, the digital access. Though the call of the day is go online, embrace digital technology, educational communication technology, and go for the 4 quadrants of learning, do all these things, the ground reality is that the digital device and the genuineness of the learners, the genuineness of learning motivation. Most of the learners, a wide majority of the learners get themselves enrolled in this ODL process. We are having about 42 of them. Most of the learners, the sole motivation is to get through the exam and to earn the degree or the certificate. The genuine learner motivation, which can substantially enrich the teaching learning processes through the newly technology mediated platform, like say WhatsApp, Telegram group, etc. Our experiences indicate that most of the learners are concerned with when is the date of the submission of assignment, whether the results have been declared or not. They are mostly concerned with these issues only, which are also available in the website of the university, but they do not find the time to see the website despite our promotion. And mostly they are concerned about this question, paper, date of examination, date of submission of assignment, all these things only. So we may be required, so in this ecosystem, so though we want to embrace all the educational communication technology, etc., but the learners are not making full use of this, mostly for 2 things. One is digital divide issues are there. Learners are rural, backward area, digital divide issues are there. Despite that, those who are not having the issues of digital divide, they are also the motivation related problems are there. So these are some of the things, but this NAAC assessment and accreditation framework have given us some useful insights so that we can think about improving our performance, so that we can internalize the performance enhancement mechanism, and we can keep on. That has given us some kind of roadmap. So this is what I would like to say, though I am not fully aware about the background of the discussion so far. And I'm once again sorry that I could join late. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sama.
Thank you.
I see a hand up from Saida Fakhari.
Yes. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I hope I'm audible. Okay. I just wanted to quickly share our contribution. I'm from International Open University. I'm the registrar. It's our pleasure and privilege actually to join in this forum. I hope it will be a great platform for us to learn from each other. We are actually based in Africa because our headquarters are in the Gambia, but our student body is actually it's spread all over the world. So we have an interesting setup. It's completely online. So we are offering courses and programs which are basically we are able to attract students from different countries. So it's actually we say that about 200 countries and territories. We have students in every corner of the globe. Now, when it comes to quality and benchmarking, it was interesting. I was observing the slides and I noticed that, yes, we have actually gone towards more quality than benchmarking up till now, because we are regulated by NACA, which is the quality assurance body in Gambia. And we're also registered in Malawi. And over there, there's NCHE, the national so this is how our approach has been thus far, where we are assessing even the internal quality assurance is also based on the quality assurance regulatory bodies. So this has been the approach thus far, but I think this would be a very interesting platform for us to also learn more about the benchmarking and see. Actually, we are even a member of INGWAHI and some of the other quality assurance agencies as well. So thank you very much for letting us participate. I hope it will be a beneficial experience for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Said. We have another hand up, I think, now from, was it from Cyprus? Odysseus, Soros?
From Greece.
From Greece, okay, sorry. Sorry, nearby, but not the same.
Thank you very much. I'm the Vice President of the Hellenic Open University, Professor Stathis Evstathopoulos. Unfortunately, our president cannot be with us today and participate in this very interesting meeting. So I'll take the speech on behalf of my university for a couple of minutes to present the most important issues of my university. The Hellenic Open University, based in Greece, and is on operation 25 years now, and has been established before 30 years. And we offer exclusively distance learning education, mainly in Greek students. Our philosophy has been based on broader quality that could be described as a commitment to some fundamental values of academic values and on educational issues, which are the lifelong education and the provision of higher education and the offering of studies at higher education level exclusively through distance learning. Dedication to the progress of science and the transmission of knowledge, the optimal satisfaction of the requirements of our students, and also of the needs of those who use these services and of anyone else affected directly or indirectly by our activities. The academic freedom also in teaching and research, the respect for meritocracy, respect for the code of ethics and for the university's integrity, technical and scientific integrity in the promotion of innovation and social responsibility in terms of our work and our results. We have developed an internal evaluation unit for the evaluation of our programs, and from the results of questionnaires provided to both students and academic staff, we have significant findings every year in relation to the quantity and the quality of communication of academic staff with students, the organization of modules and programs, the adequacy of the educational material, the efficiency of the administrative services, the overall satisfaction of the students, and also the individual comments. Moreover, we have a huge number of quantitative data which are collected from internal databases of our university, which are analyzed in order to produce statistics and other valuable information for both administrators and program directors. I have to say that on October, between 19 and 21st of October, we are going to organize the European Congress of Open Universities here in Greece. And it's a good coincidence with our quarterly, the 25 years of our operation. Thank you very much for this invitation, and I wish you good health and good health to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I see we have Dr. Zahid Majid from Allama Iqbal Open University from Pakistan. Dr. Zahid, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much, everyone. It's Dr. Zahid Majid. I'm working as Director International Collaboration as well as having additional responsibility of academic planning and course production at Allama Iqbal University. Let me have a brief about my university. This is the Open and Distance Learning University in 1974. At that time, it was the second in the world after UK Open University. So we have about 47 years experience in the open and distance learning. This is pure open and distance learning university. Currently we have about 1.4 million students. That is from all over Pakistan, and we do have international students also from 22 countries. The university basically offering programs from the certificate level to the PhD programs, and we have about 4 faculties and more than 50 departments. We are offering 180 programs from certificate to PhD, and in these programs we are having about 3,000 courses. These courses mostly in the English medium or English mode, but for the undergraduate or the school certification is mostly in the national language that we call is Urdu language. The topic is very interesting, and most of the participants are familiar with us because we are having some collaboration with Shanghai Open University and other Yunnan Open University and other Chinese university. And other open universities in Asia and Europe. The benchmark is the topic that we are talking about. Is important to be having this framework for all the open universities, because in history we do have some benchmark towards the quality and for accreditation and for means of recognition of our programs. But this will be a landmark to the open universities, that we can come up with the common and consensus benchmark that's not only for improving the quality, improving the programs also, but in this COVID, after the COVID and during COVID, what we have learned that we must have some collaboration with each other, using the resources from each other, come up with the open education resources and MOOCs. And that's we are working with different universities, not only the open distance learning universities, but for formal universities also. We also having the responsibility to capacity building the former universities faculty in Pakistan. So in COVID, we provided technical expertise to the universities, colleges, and schools, that they come up with the solutions and strategies how to engage the students, especially during the COVID. But now after the COVID, they are now used to with the open and distance learning, especially the online and e-learning. So this is what we are doing in Pakistan, and hopefully we will having opportunities to collaborate with participants and the universities that now participating in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zahid. I don't see anybody else raising their hands.
I think Mr. Babar.
Mr. Babar.
Yes, just one more thing, since we are talking about the benchmarking criteria, just like to humbly submit one of the often overlooked aspects of the ODL domain, and that is the media incorporation and the content development when it comes to videography. So the idea is basically to sensitize all these stakeholders when it comes to developing the course contents and relying on media production, because there are certain concepts when we talk about instructional methodologies, instructional design incorporation, and videography, and then the incorporation in the whole media ecosystem. We are talking about hyper video. We are talking about many new phenomena that basically manipulate the audio visuals. So it is a very important aspect, in my humble opinion, that needs to also have a formal approach when we talk about benchmarking, when we talk about establishing the ODL domains. So this just a comment and just a suggestion that there should be the media content production and videography should be given very much important, because that to me is the fuel for everything that will be built upon those ODL domains. especially for those who are purely online education institutions. Thank you.
That's actually, thank you for your question and maybe opinion in this case, Mr. Weber. I would like to maybe ask Professor Basic about Professor Basic's experience in this case. As you see, we here have very different universities. Some of them are purely online and distance. Some of them have campus-based education. And maybe you have some experience on how to, say, mediate benchmarking between different groups of different types of universities in this case. I can say that, for example, private and public types of educational institutions are similar to this, but they represent different categories anyway, and maybe some experience from this category or something like this.
Thank you, Dennis. I mean, it comes back to the last question as well, and others. I think there are all kinds of simplistic characterizations and judgments made which aren't realistic. And I'll give an example of a number of institutions in this virtual room know that people say, oh, you're a private university. What they're really saying in the delicate way is you're just a private university and therefore we won't take you so seriously. And this applies to even the most prestigious universities in some cases. After all, many US universities are private and have been for many years. The Arab Open University is private, but at the end of the day, there's all kinds of different private. Most of the universities in this room who are private foundations. Now, it may come as a surprise to some in the room, but in many countries in the world, all universities are private foundations, even if they receive nothing but state funding. So I think there are some issues about, use of the word private is often misused. It's in terms of organizational structure rather than looking at the source of funds. So I think that's one small thing. I think on the media side, I think there are some really interesting issues there. And I think it comes back to Dennis's point about the various schemes. If you have a scheme to look at, let's take ACOD, it's much easier to say, well, ACOD doesn't do that, now we must fix that problem, rather than starting from a blank canvas, as we say. So I think even if you had a scheme which you didn't use in the end, it provides essentially a kind of meta benchmark for the dialogue. And I think the last thing I'll say, which will irritate a lot of my friends in schools, it is, I think, increasing, and this may apply to all kinds of agencies, it's increasingly unhelpful for institutions whose raison d'etre is online, even if they're blended, to worry so much about what's happening in schools and the tools used for that. They shouldn't be, but they are just very different worlds. And I think that's a real problem. So we're having this discussion in European circles as well about maybe we shouldn't pay so much attention to what's going on in schools as a way of going forward, because schools are fundamental, although there are some virtual schools are fundamentally presential. The blend is a thin blend. In universities, increasingly, as most of us has covered with COVID, the blend is a pretty thick blend, even if it wasn't supposed to be. So I think universities need their own kind of analytic mechanism because of the issues that Barbara raised. If you're doing sophisticated media production, that's not going to happen in schools. Not in one school in 10,000 maybe. But in most open universities, we face this kind of thing every day. So I think universities need their own scheme, which is specific to them. I don't think I'm saying anything very shocking to universities, maybe to some international agencies, which doesn't mean they have to choose a bad scheme or no scheme, because there are several schemes, as we know, that will work. So I think it comes down to an old phrase, horses for courses, and to look at what people want to do. The other thing I would say quickly is, I think someone said, oh, the lady from the virtual university in Gambia, the quality agencies have to come first. Quality is more important than benchmark, because if you don't get the quality right, they'll close you down. Now, I know in many countries, quality agencies seemed not to do that, but I come from a country where if you get the quality wrong, you are closed. So I think one's got to be quite careful. And that's why it's really irritating that, and I'm guilty too, the benchmarking people haven't talked so much as they should over the years to the quality people. So we've got two worlds which they are different in purpose, but they become different in tools. Now, we had a great chance in 2015 to sort that out in Europe, and it didn't work for reasons I won't go into. But there really has to be much more common understanding, much more quality people in the benchmarking teams, benchmarking people in the quality teams. That comes back to the point about, and campus people in the distance teams and vice versa, because all these bits of university structures can learn from each other, and we shouldn't just be in our little silos and not talking to the people next door. We faced that very much at the University of the West Indies, because there we have 4 campus institutions and 1 virtual institutions right next door to the campus institution in Barbados. And so the kind of talk that goes on quietly in some institutions was going on very loudly between the multiple campuses of University of West Indies. And so I have 3 years of experience to, I've heard most of the stories and most of the excuses over that period. It's tough to do benchmarking and quality, but there are ways of making it not quite as tough. Sorry, that's turned into an oration rather than an answer. So I've said enough for the moment. Who's left to talk?
Thank you. I see Dr. Zahid Majid would like to add something. He's raising his hand. Dr. Zahid?
Yes, thank you very much. Might be I missed the few moments where we have talked about the benchmark parameters. So the one parameter of benchmark might be the quality assurance, but there are many others. And most of the universities, especially the formal and means the open and distance learning university, they covered many benchmarks parameters in the quality assurance framework. But they're also having an accreditation framework. They have a recognition framework. So if we are going to have the benchmark for the improvement of performance of the open universities, then we should have clear means parameters about the benchmark, what we mean by the benchmark. Either we are setting benchmark for the quality, or in quality, yes, definitely the quality concern with HR, quality concern with infrastructure, quality concern with the content, programs, learning materials, methodologies, assessment. That's all included in that benchmark if we go with a quality assurance. So we should be very clear. Might be I'm not having the whole concept what we're talking, but in the short discussion, what I have perceived that we should be very clear when we are going to have the benchmark for the improvement of performance of open and distance learning. There are a number of benchmarks already available. That one of the, we have the experience because of the open and distance learning university, the International Council for Distance Education, Commonwealth of Learning, Asian Association of Open Universities. There are a number of benchmarks that are available. So we're keeping all these practices that already having, and then we come up with what we want to have this benchmark for not only for the one region, not only for Asia, that's include everyone. That will be a very comprehensive, covering all the aspects of the benchmark with relation to the performance of open distance learning. And many of open universities still with the old concept of traditional correspondence distance learning concept. This is quite a change. There is a big paradigm shift in the open distance learning, what we are talking for last 30 and 20 years. Now, this is wholly changed. So we keep all these things because many of the participants are from those universities still having that concept of open distance learning. We may come up with the ODEL, open distance electronic learning or e-learning, because now many universities already shifted from the traditional correspondence to the distance learning that is online and e-learning. So this is one of the things that I'm not correct what we have discussed. This is just in my mind to share with you people. Thank you.
Thank you for these wonderful comments.
I see Svetlana has raised her hand.
Yes, just, well, I have two comments. One is that indeed, well, this benchmarking initiative is intended to be for the sake of quality. And second is that, well, we have recently discussed this issue, and this is about private and public and profit, non-profit and for-profit. And actually these are different dimensions, because there can be private non-profit open universities, and so the different combinations can, well, have the right to exist. So well, probably I would propose to show again the well, the list, well, one of the last slides from your presentation, Denise, and well, let's ask our participants what they think, whether this makes sense at all, and well, you are most welcome to comment on this.
Yes, we have compiled this list. That's what we thought might be at least the basis for dimensions, what we plan to review. So, for example, are there any Open University specific dimensions for Open Universities for benchmarking that might be relevant to only to Open Universities? And other criteria? So maybe if you could share your comments on this matter, it would be much appreciated.
Excellent. I think you have covered many parameters that we are just talking, and we can add more if we have the input from the participants.
I think we can arrange it somehow, or maybe we'll share again this list and ask for the comments to update it. So thank you, Dr. Zahid, for your suggestion.
We have two participants waiting for comments. Afroza.
So please, I just don't see people who raise their hands. So maybe if people start commenting.
Afroza.
Afroza's got her hand up.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, I will say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all from the different corners. Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate, and definitely it is a very good initiative for all the open universities who are trying their level best to ensure the quality of open education, and also trying to follow the benchmark to uphold the quality, so that every open university or every institution who are providing the open education, they can maintain the same quality or same type of service to the students, to the beneficiaries, and to the other community stakeholders. So here the list of benchmarking is very fine, and I appreciate this one. In addition, you know, research is a very inseparable part of education. So here I am from, sorry, let me introduce first. I'm Afroza Bulbul. I'm Director of Research and Publications from International Open University, the Gambia. So here I wanted to talk about the research activities of the open universities, because if we don't go for research activities, so our education will be half done. So I think we can include the research activities or research milestone within the benchmark list, and it will be helpful for all the educational institutions, especially who are providing the open education. Thank you all.
Thank you. I think there was a second person. I'm sorry, I don't see the list of people raising their hands.
I can see in chat Professor Nripendra Narayan Sarma. So this is to introduce yourself once again, or you wish to speak out?
It's all right. I have already made my point. Nripendra Narayan Sharma. I have already made my point. I just made one additional submission that the SEMCA, Commonwealth Educational Media Center for Asia, they have developed a quality assurance toolkit. So that might be useful. That's what I made a suggestion. That's all.
May I comment on that? Professor, can you please confirm that the SEMCA quality assurance framework toolkit is the same that we having the Commonwealth of Learning?
I am not fully aware about that, but
Yeah.
that's more or less same. To some extent, a high degree of similarity is there with our national assessment and accreditation framework.
Yeah, okay. Because SEMCA is not only for India, that is for Asia, no?
Yeah, that is for Asia, and that's why possibly that might have some international applications.
Yeah,
that's why I just made the submission.
Okay, that's I'm saying, because the if we go to SEMCA, that better to go with the Commonwealth of Learning quality assurance framework. That is more comprehensive. That is about more than 55 Commonwealth countries are adopting, not only the Commonwealth countries, but other countries also.
Yes, they can make use of this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sarma. We actually cooperate with Commonwealth of Learning a lot. Professor Asha Kanwar is the member of our governing board, and we will definitely communicate with them for this quality assurance framework. I think it looks like at the moment there are no further comments. Svetlana, maybe you will conclude the meeting.
Okay, yes, thank you, Denis. So let me thank once again all participants for their contribution, and we look forward to further cooperation with you. We will share this list and would expect your further comments, and maybe some you might wish to add something to this list. In the chat, I posted the link to the the UNESCO World Conference on Higher Education that will take place from 18th to 20th of May. And our session organized jointly with the Commonwealth of Learning is scheduled for the 19th of May. So they have already opened registration and you may attend online. In the program, there are representatives of several universities from Asia, from Africa, and from Europe. Well, this is again because of the time difference. And so this meeting has been recorded, and when we have another meeting with our colleagues from the Western Hemisphere, we will share the link to this recording with you, and we do expect to continue to be in touch with all of you. So thanks again, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care.
you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
再见，再见。
再见，拜拜。